What's up everyone, Andy Cantu here from Lux Travel Hacks, and today I want to show you how to get to Japan for as close to free as possible. This is specifically to points bookings, not cash, right? So we're going to go through that completely, and so you have a much better idea of how to do it if you're trying to go there. So number one, you have to make sure that you're earning the right kinds of points. Generally, this is easily done on credit cards. So you have to make sure you're earning transferable points, no cash back, no fake travel rewards cards like Wells Fargo or Bank of America, or whatever credit union that might tell you you're earning points for travel, right? You're not. You have to make sure that they are transferable. That is the key. And by that I mean transferring to different transfer partners. So you might see like Chase cards. Chase has Ultimate Rewards. Amex has membership rewards. These are currencies that are transferable to various airlines. British Airways, Air France, Singapore, Air Canada, whatever. And if you might not understand yet that you don't need to fly those airlines. You just need to use those airlines to fly others that you want. And that may not make sense initially, so I'll go through it today. And we'll talk about transfer partners and how that all works. But that is by far the most important thing to do starting out, is to make sure you have the right points, or the rest of this does not work. So let's get into it. Let's just say you're trying to go to Japan. I like to start with Google Flights. And this is basically just to find routing options. So if I'm in Houston, for example, I want to start to get a general idea of where I'm going to lay over if I need to. Are there nonstops? In Houston, it might be a little bit easier, but if you're like in, I don't know, even Charlotte, or if you're in maybe Portland, or I don't know, like smaller airports, then this is a useful tool so that you know what you're dealing with. So maybe we'll start with something not as big as Houston. We can start with like Reno, for example, to, let's just say Tokyo. And I'll put both of the Tokyo airports. There's two. It'll do it automatically. Whatever date, the whole idea is to just find routing. So what I'm looking for are one stops, and the reason is I want to go through this list right here and see this layover city. So these are the big hubs that you'll be able to connect through if you're in Reno, right? So Dallas, LA, Seattle, and you can open it up so you can see what it is if you're not familiar with the code. Dallas, LA, Seattle, some Denver, San Francisco. So this is just to give you an idea, because sometimes I'm surprised, right? And I look and it's like, oh, there's a nonstop. So we'll try to look for that first. And the whole reason to do this is to understand routing, but also to understand if like the likelihood that you're going to need to position. And positioning is a concept that just means I have to fly somewhere first before taking my big flight, because I'm in a small airport, or because it's a different airline that serves it and it's not from my airport, or whatever the case may be, right? So this just kind of helps you understand that so that you know what you're looking at. This doesn't have anything to do with the points. It's just kind of so you know, right? And before we get into the actual finding of the seats, the point seats, I want to talk a little bit about windows of booking. People always ask me, like, when should I book this flight? Should I book it super far out? Are seats going to fill up? Should I book it close in? But what if I don't have last minute flexibility or whatever, right? So there are a couple of answers to this. It's not really like one size fits all, but generally 11 months out is good if you're traveling with two people. If you're traveling with more than two, some airlines don't tend to release that many seats that far out, so you'll be better closer in. So the best window initially is 11 months out if you can. If you can't, then it's usually better to wait until like 2-3 months out, even less if you can swing it. Personally, I prefer to be inside of the 1 month out, because I know that all the seats are going to start appearing. And you have to remember that the psychology of points versus cash is very different. So in cash, we're like, oh, we were rushing to get the ticket because the price is going to go up or whatever. In points, what happens is not that the price goes up or down, but availability appears or does not exist, right? So it's like super far out. Airlines may choose not to release seats because they're going to first try to sell them on cash. They want to first collect those $5,000 business class tickets or $10,000 first class tickets or whatever. And then as it gets closer, they start to realize, well, maybe we're not going to fill this based on our patterns that we've seen. So we can start releasing points seats, right? Which is a different set of availability than the cash seats. So that's how the psychology differs a little bit. So 11 months out, 1 to 3 months out, those are the two big windows. In between, a lot of places will work anyway. Like Europe is very easy to do in between. Even some parts of Asia, South America, usually easy to do whenever. But you may or may not struggle inside of that window, and you may just have to wait a little bit longer for point seats to appear once the airline figures out they're not going to sell them, right? So all that to say, those are the windows. Let's get into the looking for availability thing. So I use a tool called seats.arrow, fairly new. I used to just do it manually, which I'll show you a little bit about here, because whatever we find here, we're going to go confirm manually. But this is a good start to kind of give you the big picture. What availability is out there? What airports should I be looking to and from? Whatever, right? So it gives you just a global view of everything points. So it may be a little overwhelming at first. So if it's the first time you're using it, just play with it a little bit. And there's a pro version that lets you look farther out, but I think up to 60 days it's free or something like that. Either way, it's fairly cheap if you choose to do it. So up to you. So you can use the Explore tab here and look for specific programs like I was talking about earlier. And I'll talk about that now, I guess. So as an example, here's Air Canada, right? Air Canada transfers from, you can see right here, from Amex, from Bilt, from Capital One, from Chase. And you may say, well, I'm not flying Air Canada, so why do I care? You care because Air Canada is part of Star Alliance. And when you have a program that's part of a certain alliance, they have access to other airlines' tickets. So Air Canada will have United tickets, Singapore tickets, ANA tickets to Japan, like all these different alliance partners will be available through Air Canada, assuming the airline has seats available, right? Which they may or may not. So that's why you care, and that's why transferability matters, because even though you may not see ANA as a transfer partner with Chase points, for example, or whatever, you can book it through Air Canada. So that concept is really, really important to like unlocking the value of points that you have in your credit cards. And that's why looking for specific programs may or may not work for you. But today we're just going to use the search function, which searches all of them. So another cool thing here is that they have these different airport codes. Like ASA will get all the big Asia airports, which we might do today. For Japan, Europe, same thing. Whatever. USA, another one we're going to use right now. So let's get to it. So we'll do USA. I like to also put the Canadian airports, the big ones, Vancouver, Montreal, Toronto, and I like to put the two big Mexican airports, Cancun and Mexico City, because there's a lot of cool nonstops that I didn't even realize until later. We can start with just Japan to make life easy, but you may want to just do ASA for Asia, and you'll just see a lot of stuff like in India also, and it kind of will complicate our life today, I think. So we'll just do Japan, and we'll do, well, I was talking about the windows, right? So let's do sometime in the next couple months. Around here, even for like cherry blossom season could work. We're going to do direct flights only to start. If you can also toggle that off and get even more options, right? But let's not do too much. I always search for at least 2 seats. You can exclude certain carriers. Here, I'm excluding Air India and I think Air Serbia or one of these other ones because I had seen some issues with them. Doesn't apply to this, so we'll just wipe it, and then we'll put business class plus or minus 28 days because we're not looking for a specific date range. We're just looking for like kind of a window in the next few months, and we'll search that. Okay, so a bunch of options here. You can see we have a few pages of options. These are all nonstops from somewhere in one of these places to Japan. So these will all solve the problem no matter what airport we're in, because we could just hop over to whichever place here. Like you can see here, San Francisco, New York, DC, Chicago kind of covers all the coasts, right? So no matter what airport you're in, you can get it done. And of course, it's just a matter of how many points there are, right? I mean, how many points they cost. So something really important here to talk about is you can see here that it says like Euro bonus, for example, right? So you're going to see some programs here and like Alaska. Alaska and Euro bonus are not transferable from any of the credit card currencies, right? So you might think, well, like, why do we care? Should we exclude them? Which you can come into programs and say, I don't want to see them or whatever. We can exclude them, but I think it's better to have an understanding of what's happening underneath, right? So like Euro bonus, for example, San Francisco to Tokyo. If we hover over this here, you'll see it says UA right there. That's United Airlines. You can also click the I, go to business, and see that this is a United flight. So we don't necessarily have to remove Eurobonus because what it's showing us is a Star Alliance flight that we can go book with Air Canada, for example, like I mentioned earlier, right? And if you click here, it'll even show you book via Air Canada, and we can go straight to it and confirm if it's there. Which, by the way, is something you need to do when you find anything on Seats Aero. You always go confirm and make sure it's there because it could have disappeared in the time that they found it, right? So here it is, San Francisco to Tokyo, 75K. So that's cool for a couple reasons. One, we don't have to ignore Eurobonus. It's showing us United flights that we can book, just not directly with them. And I'll go over this in more detail in a second to know which partner to use and all that. But basically it's there. Also cool because it's cheaper than what they wanted. A lot cheaper. So I just wanted to kind of touch on that. So normally what I'll do is I'll sort it by business. I'll sort it by points cost. And if you hold shift and click the date too, it'll sort by both things. So the dates are in order, but first it's the business points. So the cheapest ones are these, and this is another same concept, American we can't transfer points to, but it's showing us JL flights. So that is JAL, Japan Airlines. That's an alliance partner of Oneworld. So we can book this with British Airways, for example, or whatever. And it's kind of impossible to run through like all the different partnerships and who to quote with and all that stuff. But it's going to be in a list of all the resources that I use in this video, so you don't have to worry. So just try to follow along with, I guess, like the basic partners that we use initially. So let's try to look at one of these. Let's just say this March 11th one, and maybe you want to be out there for a couple weeks or something, see the cherry blossoms. So we can't use American because we can't transfer points there, like I was talking about, but we can quote this with British Airways and a couple others, but we'll just quote it with British Airways to see. So this is March 11th, Chicago to Tokyo. Let's go quote that. Okay. Okay, so here we are. And by the way, all of these partners have a points version. So there's like a points checkbox, or there might be a points little menu item or whatever. So with British Airways, you'll have to go book and then book with Avios. That's their points currency. And that's how you get to this screen. You don't want to try to use their normal search or cash search because it won't work. It's the same for all the partners. With Air Canada, for example, you'll see that there's a checkbox that says use points. They all have something, so make sure to look. It's never just the normal search. So Chicago to Tokyo, but specifically HND was the one, and that was March 11th. You can put people in class and stuff, but let's just look at it. No stopovers. Okay, so here we are. You can see here's the one seat. That's something else that Seats Aero can sometimes be confusing. It can be confusing about Seats Aero is that certain partners don't release the amount of seats that they have. So American, you can see here, there's nothing else after direct. And if you look on, well, Canada usually shows the amount of people, but like Alaska, for example, you'll see right here, it says, oh, it's not after direct, it's before direct. It says 2 seats, right? I don't know why Air Canada is not showing it. So some do, some don't. So sometimes it's possible that Seats Aero will show you something that doesn't have all the seats. And so you kind of just have to go and quote it and see like, okay, well, there's 1 seat. So this may or may not work for me. Maybe I'm flying solo and it does, whatever. The point remains the same. I want to show you how to quote this, right? So remember I was saying we could not transfer to American Airlines, but we can transfer to British from all the major credit cards. So this is a great partner to use for all Oneworld Alliance flights like JAL. So we can click it and see. So 92,000 points and 333 bucks. Let's quote this in one other spot. Asia Miles. This is Cathay Pacific's program. And remember, I'll list like the resources you need so you know what partners, but let's see. Asia Miles is not as transferable as British Airways. You can only transfer basically from Amex and possibly Capital One and Citi. I'm not 100% sure, but not from Chase for sure. And so if you have those, you can use this and it's useful. Let's see. Flights, redeem flights. So we're looking for that points mode, right? So same thing. Chicago to HND, one way in this case, March 11th. We can put business. All right. So here it is, 89,000. And to clarify, what we're doing here is we're just quoting various partners for the same exact flight. So you can see here, it's the same Chicago to Tokyo from 10:20 a.m., right? Oh, sorry, different day. This one. 11:20 a.m. to 2:55. Here it is, 11:20 to 2:55, 11:20 to 2:55. Same exact nonstop, flight number JL9. I'm sure it's here somewhere. JL9. So all we're doing is finding the partner that, one, we can transfer to from whatever credit card points we have left, or have, right? And two, that gives us the best deal. Price plus tax, because there's always points plus a little tax and fees. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. So in this case, 89,000, and we can convert this to US dollars. 350. So pretty close. I mean, you save a few thousand points in 20 bucks in whatever direction, but this would mostly depend on what currencies you have, right? So if you have a lot of Chase points, you'll have to use British Airways, and if you have the others, you can choose if you want to spend the less points or more. That's kind of a preference thing. It's a little bit too specific. So anyway, that's one good example. Let's continue to go through these and quote a different alliance. So Aeroplan, this is Star Alliance, like I was talking about the very first time I mentioned this. If you look here, you'll see these are Air Canada flights, but I bet some of these are United flights. So there's United, right? So we can use any of these, really. The Air Canada ones are going to come from the Canadian airports, right? So if you were like on the West Coast, we said Reno, right? So the San Francisco one would be perfect, actually. We know we can get there. So let's look at this. This is February 21st. We could look for a March one if we cared about the cherry blossoms, but for the sake of the example, we can just look at this San Francisco one. So here it is, 10:25 a.m. Let's click straight through. And before I show you that, while it loads, let me show you the points mode here, right here. aircanada.com, book with points. The link takes us straight in there, but I just wanted to show you so you know where it is. Okay, here they are, 2 seats, San Francisco to Tokyo. Super easy, 75K. Again, we want to quote this on other partners and see who wins, right? So we're going to use Live Miles, which is great for Star Alliance. And maybe we'll also quote it on United, just so you guys can see kind of the difference between having transferable points and being able to choose versus maybe you have points stuck in United or stuck in American Airlines or whatever, and you're just kind of stuck with whatever value they give you, right? So, but it's cool to see it. So we know Air Canada's charging 75K, San Francisco to Tokyo, Feb 21st. Oh, it was already there. Cool. That's fine. And Life Miles will do the same, San Francisco to Tokyo. Oh, we have to pick the airport. It is HND. So it's the 10:25 flight number 875. Here's 875. 100K is what United wants. So this is why we don't want points stuck in United. Even if you had Chase points, Chase does transfer to United, right? All the other partners do not. So in a last resort, it could be cool, but because it's available here for 75 and whatever Life Miles is going to quote us, then obviously it wouldn't make sense to overspend 25K points for no reason. So let's see, February 11th, right? Or 21st? Oh, 21st, I'm sorry. I'll just go back to the beginning probably. Alrighty, so here we are, same flight, 875, 90K and 26 bucks. This is 75K and like 50 bucks, and United was 100K, so we don't want to deal with it. So that's a great example. Various quotes, same exact flight. This is how we find the availability, and across 2 different alliances, and you can use basically any credit card currency you have for either one of these, right? So a lot of options, really. You just have to kind of learn to find them, right? And for example, if you would not leverage this tool or you would search manually, you would need to know to search from San Francisco, from New York, from DC, from Houston. So this tool is really good because it kind of does that for you automatically. You can just put USA, right? Especially if you're in a place like Reno or somewhere like in the Midwest that doesn't have good connectivity to other airports. I don't know. This is just a good way to figure out where you need to be, right? In this case, San Francisco, New York, DC, Houston, LA, whatever. But various options, especially if you're inside of those windows. Like if we're 1 to 2 months out, you can see that we have a lot of options, right? Even all these, and remember to ignore some of these points values because that's Euro bonus, and we know that Air Canada will charge less for these. So like another example, DC on March 12th, Euro bonus is showing it, but we know Air Canada will have it, assuming someone didn't already book it, right? And if you look here on the left, you'll see that it was searched an hour ago or 2 hours ago or just now, right? So here it is. So even though it was showing as 99K or whatever, you know that you can go quote it for less somewhere else. So yeah, basically that's how I go about finding availability, how I go about quoting all that stuff. Remember, the core of this is to have the right points, right? Chase Sapphire Preferred, Amex Gold, Amex Platinum, Chase Inks, like these are cards that earn really good transferable points, right? That you can combine and earn easily by opening and getting bonuses and stuff like that. So if you look in the list, all that's going to be there. You don't have to worry, along with the partners and all that stuff. And one other thing I wanted to touch on before we go was, we found this points flight. We're able to get it done for a reasonable amount of points. But is it worth it, right? What does this compare to the cash value of this ticket? So we can go back to Google Flights. And let's just say like in the Chicago example, or the most recent one we did was San Francisco to Tokyo. And that was Feb 21st. It was nonstop. Because if you have to position to San Francisco to begin with, it would be ideal to go nonstop from there, not to have to go San Francisco and then whatever, Dubai or Taipei and then Tokyo, right? So the idea is to first look for long haul nonstops that you can just position over to. Or maybe you live in one of those cities like San Francisco or Chicago and, easy. So Zip Air, cheap. I haven't flown it, fairly new, so, you guys can decide if you want to do it or not. If you're willing to do this kind of like the lower priced airlines and stuff like that, sometimes point redemptions may not make sense because, 2,600 round trip, like 2 of these is still beefy, obviously, but it's better than 10K or whatever. Like even if we do round trip here for 7-day trip, 7 to 10 days seems to be cheaper usually. You can see JAL is still 10K. You can click this price graph and see that there's like 1 or 2 date combos that are less. This might be Zip Air or something like that. And then the rest of these, here, let's see what this is. Yeah, Zip Air can be done for 2,700. Otherwise, you're paying $8,000 for that round trip in business, right? So we can calculate the value. So let's just pretend the Zip Air one's not there, or you're not willing to do it, or you don't want to spend the 3K regardless. So even though it's a decent deal, you still want to redeem points. So we're going to compare apples to apples, right? So let's find that the date doesn't matter exactly. We're looking for is like an average cash price, so if you really got a good deal. Not that one day was super expensive and you're like, oh, I got a great deal, right? It needs to be something like an average. So it seems that the average is 9K round trip. So let's just say it's 4,500 each way, right? So we know we can get, these are 2 alliances. JAL is One World. We looked at one of those. ANA is another one, or United, same price, right? This is the 1025 is one we were looking at, or one of these. But anyway, they're all kind of roughly the same price. So let's just say like a $4,500 one-way value if we take this and divide it by 2 per ticket, right? So it's crazy. And we know we can get it done for 75K points with Star Alliance. The One World ones were 89K. So you can calculate different values here, but basically the way we would do this is we would do 4,500 minus whatever taxes you might pay. In the Star Alliance case, Air Canada was like $50, so it's not even worth calculating really. So just 4,500 divided by the 75,000 points. And this is your redemption value. And this is in cents, as in like dollars and cents, right? So the reason this is important is because when you earn these credit card points, like with Amex, with Chase, or whatever, if you go to the portal and try to redeem them with just their pay with points mode or whatever, they're going to give you 1 cent of value. Sometimes less, sometimes a little more, 1.2, 1.5, depending on the cards you have and stuff. So the reason this matters is because this is 5 times or more the value that you would get using points incorrectly. So let's just assume that you had gotten some of the good points. You got Chase points, Amex points, whatever, Capital One points, but you didn't know about redeeming them, finding availability, quoting, all these methods, right? You would just use them the normal way. Well, you would get 6 times less value in this case. So those same 75K points, if you do the 1 cent, they would give you $750 of travel. So you couldn't even get the cheap Zip Air business class. You'd have to fly economy, right? So a massive difference in value for the same exact points. I mean, it's a huge difference knowing how to use them. So, I mean, even if you've been earning the right ones, you still have to learn how to use them. And of course, if you haven't been earning the right ones, that's absolutely step one, so that you even have the options to transfer to these partners in Air Canada and whatever, British Airways, right? Just the flexibility of being able to find all the options that are out there in this world. So anyway, that's all I got for you guys. I think we went through a bunch of stuff. Remember, down there's going to be a list of the resources I use, the sites, the partners, the credit cards you should be getting, all that jazz. And if you want to learn more strategies like this, be able to travel the world in business first class, and do it for as little money as possible, check out my program, Lux Travel Hacks, also linked. And I look forward to seeing you in first class.